Hi guys, my name is Mark. Welcome to another MTM video. Today we have a Kia Ceed in the workshop that's having an issue with its power steering. Now, the issue that this is having is quite a common problem for these cars. It doesn't just affect the Kia Ceeds, this also stretches over various different models within the Kia brand and also Hyundai. So if you're interested to learn about how we go about fixing this, please stick around for the rest of the video. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get started. So the customer complaint on this car is that when you're trying to use your power steering, when you're trying to turn that wheel, you're hearing a horrible noise like this. And because this car has electric power steering rather than a hydraulic pump like some other cars, it has a power steering motor, which is located on the steering column where that noise seems to be coming from. Because we're going to be undoing some electrical connectors, including those to do with the airbag system, it's always good practice and safer to disconnect that battery. Don't risk it. If you accidentally set off an airbag, you will regret it. It's just a 10mm off the negative terminal, lift it off and set it to one side, just so that it doesn't accidentally reconnect to the battery and make everything live again. And because that noise seems to be coming from in here, we have to take all of this off. First things first is that there's a Phillips screw there and a Phillips screw on the other side. So to get this panel off, we first need to take this cover off. So this should just pull. There we go. So now we can get at this screw, that screw, as well as the ones underneath. With the screws out, this should just pop out, but the clips can be quite tight. You don't want to pull too hard in case you break anything. Once this is loose, you can disconnect the wiring. There's only 2 connectors on this particular car, but there is space for more. So if yours does have other features on yours, then make sure that you make note of where these plugs go in, just in case you can mix them up. The OBD port is still going to be connected. You could unscrew the bracket, but you are able to just unclip it. It's 2 tabs, there we go. And that's free. Now this can be set safely to one side. Now you'll see that there's a strengthening bracket that goes all across here. It's held on with a couple of 10mm. And again, set that to one side. So now that we've taken off these plastic panels, we'll take off the cowling around the steering column. So what you want to do is turn the steering wheel to the right, 90 degrees, and then you'll be able to see a screw that you can undo. And it's the same on the left-hand side. Just there. There's also another screw just here. So this should just pull out. There are clips, but you want to be careful that you don't damage anything. So looking at the actual steering column, now that all the covers are out of the way, you can see here the power steering motor. And the bit that we need is all the way up there behind all of this. So we're going to have to drop the steering column down. So you want to make note of all of these electrical connectors, because all of these have to come off, so that when we do release the steering column from the bracket, this is quite a heavy unit. So when this drops down, you don't want to put any stress on these electrical connectors or the wires, just in case it'll give you issues later on. Also, it'd be a good idea to remove this plastic vent. There's a screw holding it on just here, and with that screw removed, this should just pop out of the way. So now, using a 13 on an extension, we can start undoing the main bolts of the steering column. And I'm going to start with the back bolts first, because the front ones are a lot more easily accessible. So once the back are out, I come here, undo the fronts, and then lower it down gently. They're not 13s, they're 12s. Okay, so that's off. So on the back end of the module, there's a few other electrical connectors that we need to disconnect. So now what we're left with here is that the steering wheel, with the steering locked, this is sat on the driver's seat. So even though I could get at everything that I want to from here, so I don't have to take it completely out of the car, it's going to be easier for me to show you if I do disconnect it from the steering rack. So the pinch bolt is a 12mm, so now this should lift out. Now that the steering column is on the bench, we need to remove this motor. And in order to take that off, we have to take off the module that's underneath. So if we flip this over, so now with this flipped over, you can see a series of Torx 25s. You can undo them. So now this is loose, and gently lift it up and away. So there's a series of connectors in here that slot into the connectors on the motor. Can disconnect this. Okay. So we just want to set that to one side. Okay, so if we take out these, I believe they're Torx 20s. Now if we remove the motor, and see what's gone wrong. So in here you can see all the remnants of the rubber bush that's meant to sit between the motor and the actual steering column, because these like to fail. And that's all that's left of the actual bush that's meant to sit in here. You see there's no arms left at all, so the teeth that line up in here, they've got nothing to cushion them when you're trying to turn, and they just smash up against each other, and that's what gives you your clonk when you're turning. So we had to wait for that part to come in. So this is what the old bush looks like, and you can see here how worn it is, especially compared to the new one. You can see the different arms that are meant to be on it. So this can go into place. Just like that, it presses down. I want to make sure it's properly seated home. These aren't directional, so these can go in anyway. Once you're happy that that is seated all the way home, we can now reassemble the motor. Just want to be very gentle in how you place it in. You have to make sure that everything meshes nicely. And there we go. So let's flip this back over and we can put the module back on. Again, you want to be careful to make sure these electrical connectors line up with everything that's already in here, so you don't want to force anything. So nice and gently press it into place. When you're happy that's lined up, there's these 3 bolts to go back in. Okay, let's get this back on the car. So we'll just set this down here and we'll lift it into place. So make sure you have your nuts ready, but you do have to lift it over the pedal mechanisms and everything, so it can be a little bit of a fiddly job. So you want to make sure that you have someone with you really just to hold it in place if you're not confident with it. Okay, so when you're trying to put in the steering column, you want to make sure that the back end is lifted over all of the pedal mechanisms, and especially the brake pedal sensor or the brake light switch. So you don't want to damage that when you're trying to position it in place. You need to make sure that the back is in line first before you put the 2 front nuts in to take the weight of the steering column, and then put the 2 rear bolts in. So as I said, it's a little bit fiddly. It is easier if you've got another person just to hold the steering and help adjust it while you're under here. But yeah, you are able to do it on your own. So now we'll just tighten these up and put the wiring back. Then we can put this air vent back on, strengthening support. And the top piece. Now we can put on this bottom panel, so we can plug back in the OBD port. That just pops in. Put in the connectors, and then line this up. It should go into the clips. And just pop in. And also don't forget these screws too. Then this panel can just be popped on. Then we can reconnect the negative terminal. And it's time for road test. Yeah. Nice and smooth, no more clunks. So we've just come back from road testing this Kia with the power steering issue. I'm happy with it, everything's fine, and so now it can go back to the customer. There's a few other issues that we noticed on this car while it was in, so there may be a few more Kia videos to come. So I hope this has helped, guys. If it has, please give us a like on the video and leave a comment if you have any questions, and please don't forget to hit that subscribe button because it helps us out massively here at the channel. So that's it from me, guys. I'll see you in the next one.